Welcome to Marcor Studios, where here we will be interviewing different industry professionals and educating our homeowners as well as the industry as a whole. Hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Marcor Studios. We are here today with Bryan Spodek from Wood Kingdom. Thank you for joining us, Bryan.
Yes, thank you. You're welcome.
So we've been really lucky. Bryan owns his own company, which is Wood Kingdom,
Yes.
based out of Farmingdale, and now also out of Lake Grove.
Yeah.
So you do more than just swing sets, which is why we also know you. You've partnered with us on the solar side, which we love. But talk to us before we get into the solar tobacco that we're living right now. Tell us a little bit about Wood Kingdom, or more than swing sets.
Yeah. So, was it 36 plus years now? It started off as just swing sets. My father saw a need, that kids playing in the backyards was something important. And it morphed into many other things through that 36-year period, where it turned into selling sheds for homeowners, where we saw that there was a need for storage. We got involved in some other items for the backyards, fun items for the kids, to bring the family together. It was important. People's houses, everybody's scattered. And the age of, not the internet was amongst us, but video games and stuff. We have this cool little jingle. I don't know if you ever get put on hold, you'd hear it. And it stands true to the test of time. Kids wanting to stay inside, not doing enough, and getting outside and playing on there. But, eventually it turned into, we started building custom structures for people, their backyards, pavilions, and outdoor living areas.
Pergolas, outdoor
gazebos,
bars.
Yeah, pool houses, stuff like that. And I don't know, it was 2012 was when I put solar on my house. And I was like, well, how do I do this for my clients? I wasn't an owner at the time, but I was forward thinking enough, I hope, to say, how do I introduce this into my customers' lives? Not only as a business person, I thought it would be a great idea, but just from the experience that I had and what I learned about it 12, 13 years ago.
So you obviously have solar, like you said, on your house.
Yes, I do.
You were that happy with it that you were like, hey, I want to offer this to other people, because like most people say, it sounds too good to be true. And like I always say to all you don't have to sell solar. Solar kind of sells itself, because the numbers either make sense or don't. The gentleman who sold me solar, who showed me all the ins and outs and the ropes and this of that of why it was a better choice. It just clicked for me, and I didn't know many companies back then. There was probably a whole bunch, as there are still today. But I just felt most comfortable with that person and everything they explained to me, and I was like, the light went on. Yeah. And I was like, I shouldn't be the only one who should benefit from this. And are you still saying today that, like, when you sit with a homeowner, because now you're obviously selling solar through us, do you see that you still get that same, like, wait, like that typical American, especially that New York mentality, like, all right, what's the catch? Like,
yeah. I actually just had that happen to me the other day. It doesn't sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, where, customers say it sounds too good to be true.
Yeah.
How could I just put these, pieces of equipment on my roof that don't have any moving parts, or it's not like a wind up clock or anything, and it's going to just produce electricity. There's got to be a catch. And, I said, the only catch is that you could spend money to PSE&G, or you just don't have to. And the mother-in-law was there, because it's a 2-family house. And she goes, no, I'm going to have to make payments. There's some type of a catch. You're going to be getting paid for the next 30 years of my life, and I'm going to buy electricity. I said, no, it's
well, so there's that common misconception, because you have the lease, you have the power purchase agreement, you have finance, and, people get very confused about that. And I think that that's what's given, on our service side of the business, what we do, people have such, they have PTSD because they heard their friend, their family, somebody got locked into a really bad lease. I mean, as we know, there's companies out there that do have good leases.
There are.
And there are things on the market that do benefit people that maybe don't have the same tax appetite, or or now we're shifting as an industry. I mean, this big, beautiful bill passed, and let's talk about the elephant in the room. I mean,
it's, leasing has its place. I've dealt with national companies that have done the leasing thing. I've seen, the good and the bad and the ugly. I tell homeowners all the time, I've experienced
many different solar installation companies, and I've seen, long-standing, long-owned companies, and I've seen, smaller ones and big national companies all, either they're in business still or they're not in business.
Yeah.
But leasing has a good place, like you said, for the non-tax appetite homeowner, the retired fixed income. But with the BBB, the big beautiful bill, it's a different game now.
Definitely changing. So let's talk about, let's break down this whole big beautiful bill and what is changing. So it's official. The residential tax credit is going to be gone as of December 31st, 2025. So that's more of, in my eyes, when I read that, it was like, internally we pivoted for that because we were never really in just like the sales and install side of things. We were really more the maintenance and servicing side because we have the roofing to plug that in. And, there's so much maintenance, and financially it doesn't benefit a lot of solar companies to run just a service company. For us, we're running a roofing service and solar service and siding service. We're doing all the services, plus we also have the maintenance side and the roofing. So it does make a lot of sense here. So, I anticipate we're going to be here for the long run when it comes to the service side because somebody's going to have to maintain these systems.
Yes.
The scary part is when I start to run financials on, and some companies come to us with, their inner workings of service. I realized that service was actually a losing portion of their business. What's going to happen to now those customers that when these companies go belly up because they have nothing left to sell, you're going to have two different roads they're going to take, right? So either they're going to go take the road of, hey, I don't have anything else to sell because I only sold finances, so I'm done and I'm going to move on to something else. Right. So those are the companies, in my opinion, are going to be the ones to be really weary of over the next couple of months because they're going to try and get that last shot in the arm. They're going to try and sell as many deals as they can. They're going to promise you the world on warranties, but what's a warranty if the company is going to potentially go out of business, right? Yeah. Then you've got the opposite road where companies that never offered a lease. You've got companies that really that's predominantly their business. We work with them hand in hand every day. But you've got companies that are now going to pivot to leasing that never did because maybe they didn't believe in it or maybe they didn't like it. And now it's just another way for them to still stay in the business and survive. And they're new to this leasing thing and they don't understand if it's a good or bad fit for you as a homeowner. So, for me, I don't envy to be in a consumer seat right now to say, okay, I want solar. It makes sense and I want that tax credit.
Right.
But am I going to get it from a company that might go out of business or from a company that's about to pivot into something else? And, there's a lot of question out there. What's your take on that?
It's definitely a weird time to think about going solar. I can't, as a homeowner, as a buyer of products, not just selling stuff, I could see how it's being leered because there's been always a bad trail of taste of, solar in people's mouths because there were bad companies selling leases to homeowners out in the past and people getting burned. And, and then you hear about, these companies going bankrupt. I think one of the bigger ones recently is Sonova.
Yeah.
Big into leasing. So, I could see how homeowners, if they read up on these things and they hear about it and they're like, well, the tax credit's going away and leasing might be my only option to get this tax incentive, which really the homeowner never got a full advantage of a federal tax incentive.
Exactly.
It's like, well, which company to go with? Like, I don't want to buy it or I don't have enough credit or whatever it is to buy it. But I hear bad things about leasing. I don't know who to turn to. And yeah, it's unfortunate. There are a lot of, companies, like I said, over the years, they push jobs because that's all they do, right?
Yeah.
All they do is sell solar. So they have to push jobs through to keep the wheels turning. And, I've seen many bad actors pass roofs and where they shouldn't have. And, the homeowner then has a problem. And, again, there's going to be a big push for, this urgency deadline that, these guys who it's all they do is sell solar. What are they going to do in 6 months from now when they can't sell a purchase?
Yeah, it's going to be
the tax incentive is not there, and how palatable or attractive will solar be to the regular homeowner when you don't have this 30%, $9,000,
well,
$10,000.
Let's touch on that because the reality is that if you're setting solar up the right way, like the way we do, right? The banks were always taking a lot of money on a deal. They were taking in excess more than what the actual tax credit was. Right. So if the banks get regulated a little bit better, that's one benefit for us. The material vendors are also, and the suppliers, Was there some gouging there? Probably. So are they going to be able to level out and, say, okay, we're going to adjust our numbers a little bit and do what we need to do? You take a little bit from a couple of different areas. I'm confident we're going to be able to sell solar the same way because I never dealt with the solar bros. I never dealt with the guys that were putting a 5-figure commission into a deal. If I saw something like that, I kicked the deal back right away. And that's why I had always gotten frustrated with the solar sales side of things. And I limited that so much because I wasn't putting it on a bad roof. I wasn't doing something that a homeowner was going to see down the road that they said, well, why didn't you tell me this beforehand? Like, if somebody chooses to not do the roof, it's their choice. We're here. We're a roofing company. Yeah. You know that's the first thing you can get with us, right? So, but then, you've got these homeowners, like these solar companies that are just, like you said, that's what they do. So they're push, and they want to sell. And what are you really getting at the end of the day?
It's the door. I don't want to say knock on. It's the door salesman. Buy my a vacuum or something. Because they have 50 vacuums in a truck, they need to get rid of them. And there's going to be a lot of companies that do that just because they want to get as much cash flow.
I think that's going to be the biggest concern for a homeowner is where are my warranties and what happens. And again, dealing with a company that may be backed by a leasing company where the lease gets sold off. I know companies that have positioned themselves very well for this because the leasing, just because, we've got the residential tax credit ending this year in the end of 2025, you're still going to have an end of what's going to be left in 2027.
Right.
So it's not so much just the company that's doing the installs, but who's going to hold the paper at the end of the day, who's holding that warranty. And I can say there's probably about 2 or 3 companies left on Long Island that I'd actually be comfortable going the leasing route with, that are going to be able to stand behind things or structured it where their customers are going to be protected.
Yeah, I mean, if the leasing companies, the people who are selling the leases come and go, and the bigger companies, crumble or something, like I said, I've dealt with the national companies and, leasing was their big thing. And I've had a handful of customers that, bought leases through this company, through me, not unfortunately, but that I've had to deal with the fallout. And then they went belly up. Yeah. And all these people are like, well, where do I go? Who do I turn to? And, dealing with a national company, it's not always easy to get answers.
No, we get on it
right away.
Weekly basis. Oh, we restructured again. Oh, we restructured again because we're doing the service work on those
sides. Yeah, and they're selling it off to another company because it's just the way they, play Monopoly. But I think, I still think solar is definitely a better choice, even though we're going to lose, or I should say homeowners are going to lose out if they haven't done, to make their choice to go solar before the end of this year. That in the end, the math will still make sense to go solar without the 30% federal tax credit on the financial purchasing end of things. But still, in New York State, we still have the $5,000 that, some states don't have that.
Yeah, and I think that there's discussion about increasing that, and especially with now January 1st, the electrification of New York. Now, you're not going to be able to build a new house without it being fully electric.
Right.
So now you're not going to be able to tie into gas. You're going to increase your usage. I mean, I just was talking to one of our architects the other day, and he's like, the amount of money it's going to cost me or the amount of time it's going to cost that gets passed off to the homeowner, the amount of money plans are going to cost them, even for just a regular single or 2-family home on Long Island, is going to be crazy just to meet all of the energy requirements that are needed. Yeah. And they need solar to offset a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a home for solar still. And I don't think that, this is not, I'm not upset by any means. I think that this was the government's way of hitting a reset button. I think in so many states there were issues and they went to the Attorney General and there was predatory lending, there were predatory sales tactics, there were people abusing the tax credits and, putting things in a kid's name or, taking advantage of certain state programs, and we watched it happen. Yeah, we didn't participate, and we said, if you want to go that route, we're not the company for you.
I know solar guys who were telling me, trying to coach me, hey, do it this way, and you can get everybody approved for these really ridiculously loans.
And now they're the ones that
they're in trouble.
I mean, and everyone's complaining about it. I'm like, but you guys caused this. Right. Like, if you weren't taking these massive commissions and you were actually working in, a lot of these guys wanted to work 2 days a week and then be on the golf course the other 5. No. And you know,
It's that too good to be true. You know, they fed on that and they realized, you know, look, either way, I could make these ridiculous 5-figure commissions off of these sales because the homeowner's still seeing a benefit. But you're taking advantage just like the bank is taking advantage.
yeah, I mean,
you
like,
know?
I mean, the way we even structured like our pricing, like we go into our back end of our software, even the two of us.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what our fixed overhead is. Here's what our insurance is, and it'll pre-calculate. Here's what our fair profit margin is going to be. Here's what our fair commission is going to be, and here's what our material costs are. Here's what our labor costs are. Those are all fair numbers, and you come up and it populates a number, and that's the goal, is making it a fair number. Now figuring out how to finance it and make sure that the banks are not crushing us on fees and things like that is really going to be something I do believe is going to regulate. But like I said, I think that now the biggest thing is going to be is if you're going to go solar, and I strongly recommend people do consider it over the next couple of months and get done and installed before the end of the year, because that tax credit is beneficial.
It is.
But then you've also got now the banks, and the banks that, you know, we had Mosaic go up a couple weeks ago. Like that gets scary. We're like, all right, what happens there? I mean, I had a problem. I financed through one finance company when I did my solar, and in that they had said something about, one, I couldn't use a different company to repair my house or to do any alterations to my house. And I was like, well, they caused the issue, so why would I want to use them again, right? But then they sold off the loan and never told me. I never knew where. So trying to track it down, you're like, you know, the rates dropped during COVID. I'm trying to refinance my house and I can't even find the paperwork, you know? So there's so many different avenues of, you know, where solar is going. And I think that the most important thing for the listeners right now is to understand, to do your homework and make sure that, you know, the company is going to be here to stay. And listen, none of us have a crystal ball.
No.
But to me, going with a company that either didn't already have leasing in place, doesn't have a strong leasing company behind them, and do the research on the leasing company, I would say, doesn't have other divisions of their business like you and me do, right? Because solar doesn't keep me alive.
No,
Solar's the cherry
I
on
bring
top.
that up at the table when I talk to people. I said, I'm not here because this is all I do. I said, I don't have to be here, and you don't have to go solar.
Yep.
I just know there's a benefit.
And your mortgages still get paid.
Yeah.
You know, but that's the problem, is a lot of people put it all in.
Yeah.
So to me, a company that, you know, maybe does just residential solar but doesn't have a commercial division, or doesn't, you know, maybe they have a service division, but the question is it a profitable service division? Because if it's not a profitable service division, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
It tells you that they're doing a lot of their own services,
Right.
which is a bigger concern, right? So there's so many different avenues that a homeowner doesn't know the behind the scenes, and it's a really scary position to be in. But you also you want to capitalize on this opportunity.
I mean, it's going to be rough. You're going to, you know, it's going to hurt the industry a little bit, because I do think some of these all eggs in one basket type of companies, and they may have been around for a while, they're not going to be able to withstand, because if there's not as many solar, and they, like you said, if they're not set up for leasing already, they're not going to be able to sustain floating in the water anymore. You know, they're going to take on too much water in the boat, and they're going to have to sink, because you can't just restructure a company overnight and say, oh, we're no longer just a solar company. It takes, you know, time to build up confidence in the, in the
for sure.
consumer. And the things that I like, you know, and you asked me a question earlier, and, you know, through the good and the bad, and I've seen all these ins and outs of these other companies, you know, and us having a prior relationship, when you decided to say, hey, I want to do sales of solar, you know, I was like, well, this is great, because I knew that you were in the service side of things. And, you know, I explained that to the homeowners. You're not just getting, you know, and it could be a 20-year-old solar company on Long Island, but you don't know who their installation crew was last month, or if they had a bad month and they laid off guys and they got all new guys. And I told this guy the other day, he's a pilot. I said, yeah, I could fly a video game plane all day long, but I'm not jumping in the cockpit to fly your plane and people on board.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't want just anybody up on the roof.
Well, I mean, I think that's where the electrical boards, I'm so happy they're getting involved, because like for us, we have our roofers and our solar installers. Those are the guys on the roof.
Yeah.
And they're the ones putting a couple hundred holes in your roof, right? Then we hire the master electrician who holds that license, and he's doing the electrical tie-in.
Right.
And then we have the licensed engineer who's stamping our plans. Like there's, like you said, you've got the pilot.
Right.
Well, you got flight attendants too, and the flight attendants aren't flying it. You know, the baggage handlers aren't serving the drinks on the plane and making sure people are safe.
Yeah.
So the reality is that you want to make sure that you're structured that way, and that's why I think that, you know, I know we're here to stay. And being able to handle the amount of services, unfortunately, it's so sad because I look through, you know, my team sends me the pictures to review before they get submitted to like a lot of the national accounts that we service for. And I see these systems get pulled and I'm like, I can't believe the amount of damage. I'm like, and then sometimes I'm like, how did they install on that roof to begin with? Like, they literally cut shingles and made hip and ridge caps. They took shingles and flipped them upside down. They got shingles that are literally gone. It's just straight plywood underneath the system because there was no critter guards around the system. You know, and there's so many things that can go wrong. People are so fixated on the number. And this is in no way for people to discourage people. I mean, listen, you have solar, you love it. I have solar. My electric bill has been $16, $17 a month, and it's, you know, summer right now. It's great.
Yeah. It's awesome. No, because
It benefits.
it's a math equation that just, it works.
And that's why I tell people, it's not a matter of selling it. It either makes sense or it doesn't.
You know, but you get the wrong company up there or somebody who's just jumping into it because they see an opportunity. You know, it's like going to, I'm a roofer because I just went to somewhere where the tornado just wiped out of town. I'm not a roofer. I'm just going to show up and pretend I'm a roofer.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take a lot of money in and I'm going to disappear.
So what was your reasoning for wanting to come to Marcor for your installs or for, you know, partnering and running our sales side of things?
I think it's just the overall package. You know, it's knowing where that you guys have come from and, you know, how long you've been in business and the expertise levels of, you know, not just roofing or solar services. It's just common core values. I think that, you know, my father brought to me as a kid growing up in the industry of what we do, you know, and what I now bring to the table for my clients. It's just similar and it's just not another number and, you know, jobs, push them out, push them out, you know, and again, that's something
we would rather the quality job versus just the quantity of them.
And, you know, look, you know, for what we do at my company, Wood Kingdom, you know, we're not the cheapest product on the block, you know, but we also stand behind everything we do. And, you know, 36 years, we're proud to say, you know, I don't win all my battles, but, you know, my clients are always going to win no matter what.
That's the greatest mentality to have.
And that's why I just didn't, you know, feel that way with other companies, you know, solar wise.
Well, I'm honored.
Well,
now, tell us real quick before we wrap up, you got your new location in Lake Grove. So fill us in. What's going on there?
We used to do something. Well, I shouldn't say we used to do birthday parties for kids at Farmingdale. We had very good success with it, and COVID obviously changed the world, and we were kind of forced to eliminate some of the things we did for the kids with these open plays and stuff like that, and always wanted to bring it back. And, you know, 10 years now removed from really doing birthday parties and, you know, a handful, you know, 7 years or so, 5 years from COVID, you know, we still get asked for it. We decided to expand and open a location near the Lake Grove Mall in Smithtown. And it's going to have indoor open play, and it's going to, you know, it's modeled to sell the equipment and the products that we offer now and just bring back that experience. So, you know, kids having an awesome place to come, and, you know, we're excited.
I love it. There's not enough places like that.
No.
And raising kids during COVID and not having open play places, it was one thing I was like, when I heard you doing that, I was like, that's totally awesome.
Yeah,
to have that available is great.
It is. You know, and for us, it's an advertising mechanism as well, because people get to more exposure for what we do, which helps everything across the board. But yeah, it's exciting to have the store open. It's open now. You know, it's
very easy to go in and design these like amazing playgrounds, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I just designed a $20,000 playground.
Yeah, homeowners
like,
sometimes.
Maybe I shouldn't have put the fourth slide there.
Yeah, there's definitely, you can get caught into the design aspect of things,
but it's so fun.
It is cool, and we just try to bring the best experience, you know, shopping wise, and, you know, we're happy that we're able to do this, and, you know, I hopefully another 36 years of doing it. So
keep going, keep with that mentality and those core values, and you're good. Well, thank you so much. If anyone wants to reach you, what's the best way to get you?
Internet. Probably the social media, woodkingdomwest.com.
Okay.
Is, our website, but social media is always going to be simple.
And phone number to call you guys if they wanted
yeah,
to?
631-845-3804 is the office phone number. They'll pretty much get anybody at any time of the day. So,
perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here today. And
pleasure to be here.
I love working with you. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you do for our homeowners too.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely.